Also mentioned that a lot of young Kurds actually left this Kurdish parts of Syria because of the repression of the PYD. We have to say that there has, at least until now, until lately, there hasn't been any war, there hasn't been any bombing, or at least not in the Jazeera, and until the Turkish army went into Afrin, not in Afrin. So it wasn't really a real war why young Kurds left the region, but it was basically, or very often, because of the repression and persecution by the PYD, by the PKK. So a lot of human rights violations. Siamet mentioned arrests of journalists, arrests of activists, arrests of politicians. He mentioned political murder of up to 40 persons since 2011. He also mentioned that people, even though they have the Syrian citizenship, were kicked out of Syria and deported to Iraq and told not to come back, otherwise they would have been killed. All these kind of human rights violations are quite well documented. So the question is, why does the West still, or large parts of the West, still perceive the PYD as a democratic organization? You quoted CNN, I think, who say it's a model for democracy, and indeed there are a lot of scholars which also do have this opinion, and so the question is why? Why don't people see the human rights violations committed by the PYD? I think there are indeed different reasons why this is the case, and if you're talking to analysts in Europe, particularly in Germany, and if you mention those human rights violations, the reaction is mostly the same. There are basically two arguments they always give you. The first one is, well, maybe the PYD is not the most democratic organization you can find in this world, but at least they did establish some kind of stability in the Kurdish parts of Syria. They were successful to keep the Syrian army out of Syrian Kurdistan. They were successful to establish some kind of administration there. So stability is basically seen as something positive. So this is one of the arguments why those people still think they should not really criticize the PYD. I mean, the stability argument is of course not a very good argument. If we believe that stability, no matter what kind of stability, is what we need, then we can forget about human rights, and then we can forget about democratization. Then we have to ask why trying to remove the Assad regime. Syria was very stable for years, for decades before the Syrian revolution started. So stability has nothing really to do with democracy and has not a lot to do with human rights. So I think the stability argument really